Welcome to our webinar today on creativity. It certainly is timely given what's going on in the world at large. If you believe that creativity is triggered by adversity, there is enough no matter where you look. But that, again, depends on your perspective. I'm thrilled, Haley, that you've taken the initiative to bring together your network of people that understand creativity from more than just an arts perspective. And I'm going to let you make the introductions and get the webinar going. We should be done by about 5:30 after the presentations, which will run about 12 minutes or so each. We'll have plenty of opportunity for open public dialogue. Watch your mute button and don't hesitate using chat. So we'll go from there. You're on, Haley.
Fantastic. Thanks, Perry. Really excited to hear what everybody has to say today. Just a bit of a background. Creativity has been seen as kind of the sister in the closet to innovation. And innovation, of course, has been the holy grail that everybody seems to be chasing, whether it's through commerce, culture, or education. However, what we've discovered along this path, and it's been a 10-year journey, and these are some of the absolutely amazing thought leaders in this whole process. What we've discovered is creativity lives on a continuum between imagination and innovation. And neither creativity nor innovation can exist without the imagination factor brought into that. So today, these are, well, two of our speakers today are people who I'm really excited to have share about what their experience has been. Can I just do a brief introduction of both of them, or would you like me to wait till each of them
You can
speaks?
let them introduce themselves or go ahead and tell them how great they are.
You can hear that for yourself. I will say that Michael MacDonald and I connected along this journey. We're both arts advocates, but Michael is so much more than that. I just want to read a quick bio. This is from CKUA Radio, and I love it. It says, though he does have a beard, Professor MacDonald is not a tweed suit wearing dour academic. Rather, his passion for cinema and music has led him to the streets, showcasing the hardscrabble life of artists attempting to win fans one gig at a time. Michael is an accomplished and award-winning filmmaker. He's published 11 films, 3 books on music culture. His films and music videos are available on michaelbmacdonaldfilms.ca. I'm not sure what order you would like people to speak. The other person I would like to introduce is not from our land. He comes from the fair land of Wisconsin. His name is George Tzougros. And George is our leader in arms of the National Creativity Network. He has been the acting board chair now for its 10 years. This is our 10-year anniversary. The National Creativity Network was founded through some folks in the States. I'm very, very proud to be part of their gaggle. And George will tell you more about that, including its honorary chairperson, the late Sir Ken Robinson. So I'm hoping that they will be able to share with us some concrete, actionable plans for creativity, and that it's not just some platitude. It's not something that exists in our minds. It's not something that we need to fear. And they will hopefully ignite some further discussion and action.
And did you introduce Lorenz?
Lorenz is, okay, sorry. Lorenz is here as well. Lorenz is a professor emeritus of engineering from the University of Alberta. It's really interesting to have this science topic broach this. And as we said, creativity spans and connects through all different paradigms. And looking forward to hearing all about the engineering perspective as well.
Well, let's start at the top. George, you're on.
Thank you very much. So as Haley said, I'm George Tzougros. I'm the director of the Wisconsin Arts Board, the state arts agency, but I am also the chair of the National Creativity Network. And when you think about the National Creativity Network, you should think about it like the National Hockey League. Even though it's says national, it is both Canada, America, and Mexico. So all three. As I start out, I wanted to talk about why this is important. So I thought I'd get you two quotes, one a past quote and one a almost right up to the minute quote. And the first quote is from William Blake, who said, "What is now proved was once imagined." And the second quote comes right out of the COVID era. And it's from Fortune magazine's article of February 24th, entitled "Fostering Creativity is Now the Biggest Business Challenge." And here's the quote. "It's really hard to be creative right now. Many companies entered lockdown and work from home with an eye towards business continuity. As they near the 1-year mark, it's becoming clear that it is not enough, namely because there's no business as normal waiting on the other side of this. No company, human or robot, is untouched from having to radically reinvent how to work." So going back to Haley's point, this is often thought of as the subject where you can pat people on the head and say, "Isn't that cute?" They want to talk about imagination, creativity, and innovation, but the reality is it's fundamental to where we are in the 21st century. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. I told Haley I'd talk a little bit about the birth of the National Creativity Network. And I talked about it as a knight and ICI. And the knight in this case is Sir Ken Robinson. If you haven't had the pleasure to see his TED Talk, which is the #1 TED Talk of all, it's called "Do Schools Kill Creativity?" And you won't be surprised to learn that his answer is yes. But Sir Ken is somebody, when he was alive, and he only passed away a little while back, a month or so back, who really traveled the globe to talk about imagination, creativity, and innovation, and what it meant to our students, what it meant to our businesses, what it meant to our communities, and basically what it meant to the planet. So Sir Ken was working with a group called Creative Oklahoma, which is a wonderful group and is will you believe this when I tell you, it is the only international district of creativity in America, is Oklahoma. And Sir Ken was working with them and connecting them to the international districts of creativity. The person who ran Creative Oklahoma is a woman named Susan McCalmont. And she and Sir Ken gathered people, and I was lucky enough to be among them, Haley has been lucky enough to be among them, to talk about what would an organization look like that promoted imagination, creativity, and innovation. And so travels to Oklahoma and conversations across the continent. And 10 years ago, the National Creativity Network was born. As Haley noted, and we talked about quickly, ICI, as we call it, Imagination, Creativity, and Innovation. And this is the way we split it out when we talk about it. Imagination is the capacity to conceive of what is not yet present or manifest. Creativity is imagination applied, imagination at work, if you will, to do or make something that flows from the prior capacity to conceive of the new. And innovation consists of further creative acts that advance the form, depth, reach, and richness of that which has been brought into being. So, somebody has to figure out that those rocks in the ground might be fuel. And somebody has to get those rocks out of the ground and make them fuel. And the innovation comes when you can get more barrels of fuel out of those rocks, right? So it's about creativity in all its forms. And as the arts guy, because of course I run a state arts agency, I'm often having to tell the people in the arts, you don't own this. You don't own creativity. And I also have to tell the people in the other domains, by the way, don't forget the arts because they have an important role to play in these domains, right? So the National Creativity Network, this is the official mission statement. It engages, connects, informs, promotes, and counsels cross-sector stakeholders who skillfully use imagination, creativity, and innovation to foster vibrant and flourishing individuals, institutions, and communities across North America. So as Haley said, we've been at this for 10 years. And there's been a lot of really interesting stuff that's gone on. But let me tell you about a few things that have happened. NCN, as we shorthand it, is a network of networks. So there are all kinds of people doing this work across the continent. One of them that we connected to early on is called the Creative Economy Coalition. And it's a group of people who work in their communities and their regions to measure and to promote the creative economy. Those folks were kind enough to create the report called America's Creative Economy, measuring the different reports that have been done across the nation to see if there could be a measurement applied to all creative economy studies. And they still meet together and talk about strategies to promote creativity in all its forms in their communities and regions. We created the Sir Ken Robinson Award for Leadership in Creativity and Innovation. And it's something that we're working to bring forward, especially now, as we think about the passing of Sir Ken and honoring people who continue that work across the globe. We've done various symposia with the Inter-American Bank. We've done it with Lincoln Center and others. And every Friday, we put out a weekly set of articles, the NCN Articles of Interest. And they bring your attention to projects and programs and ideas in all forms of creativity: science, technology, engineering, math, neuroscience, and of course, the arts. So how did we do something about this back in Wisconsin? What did we take that we learned from the National Creativity Network? And that is, the Arts Board is a co-founder of the Wisconsin Science Festival. In Madison, we have what's called the Wisconsin Institute for Discovery, which is on the campus at the UW-Madison. And it's a public-private research building. On one side are the professors of the university and researchers of the University of Wisconsin. The other side are the folks of the Morgridge Institute for Research. And so as we were working together on the National Creativity Network, I went back at home and I said to the folks there, as this building was about to open, wouldn't it be great if we had a science festival? One where the sciences could explain the arts and the arts and humanities could explain the sciences. And of course, a nice idea. I cannot take full credit for it. It hit fertile soil on the campus and it grew and it grew. And now 10 years on, it is a true statewide happening where in bars and libraries and in labs and schools across the state, people are talking about creativity in all its forms. Like I said, either explaining the arts through the sciences or the humanities and science and arts explaining science. So why is this important this year of all years? Well, guess what? The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development has called this the Year of the Creative Economy for Sustainable Development. So 2021 is the year of the creative economy across the globe. And so this isn't just about North America, but it's about the entire planet. And I'm going to end my comments now with a quote of Sir Ken's, which will bring us back to the planet. And he says, "Our best hope for the future is to develop a new paradigm of human capacity to meet a new era of human existence. We need to evolve a new appreciation of the importance of nurturing human talent, along with an understanding of how human talent expresses itself differently in every individual. We need to create environments in our schools, in our workplaces, and in our public offices where every person is inspired to grow creatively. Because as the world evolves, the very future of our communities and institutions will depend on it." So I thank you for inviting me to the conversation today, and I look forward to talking more about creativity with all of you.
Wow. Thank you, George. Fabulous beginning. Let's reserve questions unless somebody's got a burning one right now. If you do, raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll move on and then we'll open the wide dialogue. I've certainly got questions for you, George, but we'll hold off for a bit. Let's go next to Michael. Michael, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, George. My first question to you is: has there been a film made about that initiative at the university? If it has, I want to see it. If it hasn't, we got to make it. Because one of the things that I'm going to be thinking about, and it's really interesting to hear. I'm glad you went first, George, because one of the things that I'm concerned about is precisely the way creativity, innovation, science, technology, and the arts in our university system are broken apart, and it's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult to put them together. Though one of the things that I've been walking around with as a metaphor in my mind for a long time is the idea that these things aren't naturally separated from each other, and that they've been torn from each other. And I think the best we can hope for is restoring the body of the university, so that we can see the scars and remember that once upon a time knowledge was part of one kind of central mission, and that we have gone through a process of ripping those the process of innovation, creativity, and technology for the sake of a community. We have ripped them apart, and we have to try to undo that. And the question is, in what way, and what are some of the consequences of that? So to start thinking about that, I want to compare. So I want to start with the idea of technology first, because coming from within the creative industries, so to locate myself working with the creative industries and working with Haley, I think Haley, we started has it been 10 years, 8 years ago, something like that, a long time ago. We sat down with the Edmonton Economic Development Corporation, and we were trying to get them interested in the creative industries. And I believe it was Haley said, okay, so we want to do this. And the response was, yeah, but this is our plan A. We're going to be focusing on the oil industry. That's the plan A. And Haley said, I believe, I'm going to give you credit for it anyway, said, so, okay, well, let's imagine a plan B. And the response was, well, there is no plan B. And it's the lack of that plan B that scared us. And I remember walking out into the street some time ago thinking, no plan B is terrifying, especially when we should be innovating and creating a whole bunch of different kinds of possibilities, and kind of thinking about the future and being engaged in what we could call, futurity. What does the future of our social system look like, and how might we be creative in doing that and innovative in doing that? And the idea of futurity is central to my concern, and something that I hope we can talk about a little bit, because in the school system, the future is something that is not seriously considered, and is not internalized in the education process. Knowledge seems to be produced for the sake of it, and students are given very few opportunities to think about the role that imagining the future plays in their development as thinking and acting people. This was further impacted, I guess, by a trade mission that I went on to the United Arab Emirates about 6 years ago. And the idea was through the city of Edmonton, and I was a representative for higher ed. So I spent the time on the trade mission meeting with universities mostly in and around Dubai, and talking about the role of the creative industries in the university. And what I saw there was a focus on the creative industries directly entangled with global industry. So that the arts education, for instance, if you enrolled in an art school, the idea would be that you would not necessarily enroll into music or the fine arts or cinema or whatever. You would enroll in an art school, and the school provided the creative side of the business degree, essentially. So the art school was completely integrated with the business department, and working with business students. And their class projects were, for instance, making advertisements for Harley Davidson. And that that provided a really profound opportunity for the students in Dubai to be directly engaged with the production of creative works for the market economy, but limited to that completely. Further to that, the way that the universities were organized, they were organized in direct collaboration with international free trade zones, so that the design campuses were built in such a way that they would be next door to the international free trade zone that would be then populated by these global industries. And then next to the design sector would be rent-controlled housing for graduates of the university, so that they could start businesses on the same campus that these global industries were populating. It's the United Arab Emirates were very focused in ensuring that their graduates are ready to work directly for multinational corporations, and would be physically on the same campus, so that they could be having lunch with the leaders of these industries. Now, that kind of linking of creativity from the, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a musician, that kind of limiting of creativity just for the sake of the success and expansion of multinational corporations, to me does not sound like something that I would want to see realized. However, recognizing that we are graduating students into a creative sector, into the creative industries that currently we are fairly inarticulate about, at least in Canadian universities, and hopefully it's different in the US, but talking to my colleagues in the US, it doesn't seem to be any different, nor does it seem to be any different in Europe. And so given that, I think that our graduates are being outcompeted by districts that are focusing on partnerships with multinationals, while at the same time, and this will be the last thing I want to focus on, the emergence of platforms, streaming platforms over the last number of years has eradicated the opportunity for young creatives to be able to develop the skills necessary and the opportunities, I shouldn't say the skills, but the opportunities to engage in the economy, the creative economy, in the way it has been. So for instance, a musician would graduate from school, would start a band, would begin to play music in a local club, would make money, would be able to hire a filmmaker to make a music video, and so on and so on. There are decreasing opportunities for those for all of those artists to get any kind of meaningful paid work, while major platforms remain untaxed and become central to the creative industries in North America. So that if you want to get a kind of a history of the impact of what has happened with the centralization of digital platforms, the centralization of digital technological platforms on the creative industries, I'd suggest that you take a look at a fascinating new book called The Death of the Artist, which is put together of about 100 interviews. The author interviewed about 100 creatives and looked at what they describe as the death of the artistic middle class. So when we're talking about creativity, technology, I think we also need to be talking about economics and maybe a political economy of creativity in the various ways that as provincial, regional, national organizations, we could be involved in ensuring the healthy development of a creative ecology that is connected with the kind of future economy that we all desire. That's the best I can do in this short amount of time.
That's fantastic. I thought I saw a note pop up that Perry had left the meeting. So I'm going to take charge. And thanks, Michael. I guess we're going to just continue hearing from Lorenz first, and then it's going to be a free-for-all. And I can't wait till everybody gets into the questions because, wow, that's this is astounding. Lorenz, are you there? Are you ready?
I'm here, and I'm going to share my screen. Is that working?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Great. Okay. Well, first of all, way to go, George. The National Creativity Network is really a fantastic thing. I love your weekly notes that come out, and as Haley put me on to you. I'm sorry to hear about Sir Ken. I always wanted to meet him. I wanted to mention, I didn't get the memo concrete actionable plans for today's meeting. I got the memo I got was creativity inspired by change, or before that it was creativity from adversity, which is why I picked the title that you see. And everybody sees the title. Is that right? Yeah, yeah, George looks like he's nodding. He's the only one I can see. I gotta get this bigger, I guess, or something there. As I can only see, it's a very small window now. Just give me a moment, sorry. Because I'd like to be able to see everybody, but maybe I just can't. So I'll just... yeah,
you won't be able to see everybody while you have your screen up.
Yeah, all I can see is you. But okay, so let's get started. So my talk is about engineering creativity from adversity. And I want to straighten out a few things first about that. One is where I come from. I'm a professor emeritus of mechanical engineering for the last 6 years or so, coming on 7. I studied fluid dynamics, and fluid dynamics, particularly structure and control of turbulent flows. And there's a lot of beauty in that. And in fact, there's an annual competition just for beauty in the field of things that are beautiful, but also they convey some new knowledge. So I want to clear up some of the terminology, though, because I found that and I really appreciated what Haley said at the beginning, that there's quite a, and also what George said, is that I'm not even clear on what everybody thinks about what creativity is. So today, though, when I'm talking, I would like to say that for me, creativity is focusing just on the ideas. Like, where does the idea come from? Of course, creativity is more than that, but that's in my discussion what I want to focus on, whereas innovation is the implementation of those ideas. Okay. And so engineering creativity, where engineering is an adjective, is creativity that has to do with engineering, whereas engineering verb creativity is how to find better ideas. And that's what I'm particularly interested in. As the professor, one of my jobs was to help people make better designs and try to inspire creativity in our students, as opposed to kill it, as Sir Ken would say. And so I'm very interested in what everybody's going to say today. But one of the things is, how's engineering creativity different from the other creativity that we have, these very powerful people that I'm very happy to be asked to join. Oh yeah. And if creativity is the spark, innovation is the engine that develops that creativity. So engineering creativity from adversity. Well, necessity is said to be the mother of invention, but who is the father then? We can replace necessity with adversity for our discussion. But what do we mean by adversity? You can have adversity on many different levels. You can have external factors motivating the necessity. That you know, if something bad happened, it's happening all the time, and you have to do something. So that's a big incentive. But then you can also have adversity in terms of you have constraints on what your ideas can be. And that really happens in engineering. And you have difficulty finding any idea that could possibly work. Not just some better than others. They're just not going to work. A lot of ideas are not going to work. And then there's a third kind of adversity, which is the discomfort that you feel in the process of trying to get these ideas. So an example of the first kind is external factors. Something like, you know, we're fighting for survival, whatever it is. It could be war. I had this picture, so I threw it in because this was creativity as a result of incredible adversity. The Manhattan Project to generate this photograph in 1957. Then you have constraints in engineering and science. You have constraints because you've got the laws of nature. And, you know, gravity, it's not just a good idea, it is the law. And I want to give appreciation to Jerry Mooney, because he's the guy, I think, who said that first, if you believe his website, and he doesn't get credit for it. So that, you know, the apple falls and Newton got an idea. But nature, Richard Feynman, the physicist, said nature cannot be fooled. And that's the problem. We have these heavy constraints on what are designs. You know, that he studied, I had a picture of the space shuttle disaster that none of us really want to look at too long. Because the full sentence, though, was for successful technology, reality must take precedence over public relations. So that's one of the reasons that thing exploded. Among their engineering errors as well, I'm not saying that. It's a combination of many things. But it has to be because nature cannot be fooled. The third thing, I went to Richard Feynman again to talk about the discomfort when an engineer or a physicist, usually when you're working on a problem, you're really kind of frustrated and you're kind of, you might be angry, you're in a bad mood. And so he tells this story, he calls it the story about the monkey and the stick. He says, for a physicist, at least, and it's like this in engineering too, you see these furrows in my forehead there, that's from I make this face when I'm working hard. It looks like I'm happy, but I'm not really. He said that physicists are like a monkey in a cage, and the monkey in a cage sees a banana outside the cage, and he reaches for the banana, cannot reach the banana. But there's some sticks lying around, and he starts trying to put the sticks together, and after he tries enough combinations, he finally reaches the banana. And then he's happy for a very short time. And then he moves on to the next problem. For a physicist, that's what it's like, and it's the same for engineers. So those are the different kinds of adversity you might have, but still, he had tremendous fun, and I wanted to put this up because it's him talking about the fun he's had in studying physics. But I wanted to discuss, that kind of wraps up a lot of these ideas, one case study of engineering creativity that came from adversity. It's someone that went to my alma mater, Caltech. He had a PhD in aeronautics, and and I met him a few times. A very wonderful fellow. And what happened in his case, and I heard it, he told this story to us, he had a sudden debt, $200,000 of unexpected debt. He underwrote a loan that his brother-in-law had or something. Suddenly there was a default. He had to come up with the $200,000 US. And that was not only US, it was in the 70s. So money still meant something then. And instead of, you could freeze from this kind of adversity, or you could get paralyzed, or you could go into a death spiral, but he took a vacation. He took it's not just a vacation, it was a month-long vacation. And as he was driving down the highway in southern US, he was looking at the vultures. This is a condor. It's 3 meters in wingspan from here to here. These are the largest birds in North America. And now, instead of looking at those vultures circling, thinking, oh, they're going to be picking my bones because I'm not coming up with this 200K. He was just having fun. He was just looking at them and driving along, and he was thinking, what can I, look at those circles. I can estimate those circles, and I could time how long it comes. around and he did a few calculations just for fun, and then he realized something. And by the way, this is adversity too, because he wants to fly. He wants to, the question is about human-powered flight. And you've got to worry about gravity. It's a heavily constraint. I mean, you either get off or you don't. There are lots of ideas that just do not work. Now you can follow the rut, and that's what many people who tried human power originally did. And they made aircraft that look like other aircraft that are not human powered, but human power is only about 1/3 of a horsepower. It's not too much. The first human powered flight was about 650 meters, that amounted to something. It was called the Sumpak, and that was about 1961. It was followed by the Puffin that flew about 900 meters, something like that. Now, as my friend was driving along, he suddenly had an aha experience. And the aha experience was, as he was calculating the flow over these birds, he realized that they had an extremely low, what's called wing loading. The point is, they went very slow and they had a lot of lift per unit, a very low unit lift per unit area of their wing. So they had to have big wings, and they go very slowly. But then he realized, there's the Kramer Prize for human-powered flight, and it's 100,000 British pounds, which at that time was about 200,000 US. And suddenly he put it all together and he said, hey, I can build a human-powered thing that's going to fly, because I learned that from the vultures just now, and it's exactly the same amount of money. And so within a year, he won it. And he won it with volunteers. And he invented a lot of new things along the way. It had Tonka truck wheels for landing gear. And he became very famous. And many of you probably are aware of him. His name was Dr. Paul McCready. Won all kinds of awards. Then he went on to win the next Kramer Prize by crossing the English Channel. And now he's so good, he's got a sponsor. The sponsor's DuPont, but he likes to say that the DuPont is in water-soluble ink, in case, of course, it doesn't get across the English Channel. But that technology, which we have the genesis of that idea, that's led to all kinds of things over the years, to aircraft that can be photovoltaic and can circle for months without landing and kind of fill in the place between satellites and lower times, lower places. So I got about 2 minutes left, I think. So he invented a number of phrases. I heard him say these first, but other people might have generated them. One was do more with less. The other one was his meetings would never last long because they'd always be standing. He championed this idea of biomimetics, which is copying nature. Now, I said at the beginning I was interested, I think I skipped over that, it accidentally happened there. And he was very humble. One of his favorite expressions was, in my case, there's a lot less than meets the eye. So I use that example because it's got some of the things in it and things that are different about engineering creativity, and it's got adversity. As I said, I'm very interested in ways to improve everybody's creativity, but particularly scientists and engineers, because those are the people I've largely known. And there are a number of ways to do that. People have generated a number of approaches. In fact, Edward de Bono met with Paul McCready because he wanted to learn. There's Paul McCready's idea of biomimetics. That is taken off in engineering and science. Richard Feynman had an idea called idiosyncratic thinking. R.M. Bernstein pointed out the importance of play and wrote a whole book about it. Fleming, when he invented penicillin, was playing with different bacteria growing. He was using them as paints. In Stanford, Tina Seelig has what's called the innovation engine, and there are many, many other approaches. Now, though, there are new approaches, software approaches, AI approaches. Oops, there we go. Oh, sorry about that. That's my alarm. My time's up, and I'm just about done. Software, and now there's hardware. There's all kinds of hardware approaches to help collaborate what we're doing right now, but it goes even further than that, of course, and that is the future. Future, you can do all three: hardware, wetware, software, and that's the Neuralink Corporation. And this is me with a boot up. I'm an upgrade. I'm hoping to live long enough to get. My head's getting a little fatter. There's Intel on board, and Musk just announced a few weeks ago that he's got a monkey that can play video games from wirelessly through his skull. So the answer to my question: necessity is said to be the mother of invention, but who's the father? Well, all these things, what Paul McCready did: curiosity, observation, fun, play, knowledge. Paul McCready would always say, don't try to build an airplane unless you know the stuff. I mean, you could build a chair, but to get an airplane just to fly, it's too complicated. Imagination, disregard, mindfulness. I added that because Perry threw that out today. But that was what Peter was doing. He was being mindful. He was looking at those birds. And I'm going to talk about these things: engineering, creativity, wetware, software, and hardware at the Nexus professional development talk in June. But what does it take to raise an idea? It takes a village. And I'm glad that we're all meeting here today to talk about that. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Lorenz, and thank you, Michael, and thank you, George. Haley, I'm going to take the initiative to throw a question out just to open up discussion in the broadest sense, because there's a term that hasn't been used today that I think is central to the entire dialogue that we're having, and that is the term of artist. It seems artist equates with someone who is almost professionally a creator. And I think of three people that have come to mind, and books have been written about them recently from the perspective of what they have contributed as artists. One of them was Steve Jobs, who's clearly an artist in his way and in his manner of what he has contributed. Another was Albert Einstein, who viewed himself as an artist almost before he viewed himself as a scientist. And thirdly, and the one that I get goosepimples when I read his biography, it was absolutely astounding, and that it was Leonardo da Vinci. That if he were living today, I think he would be having a ball, because Leonardo da Vinci as a character lived his character every day of his life, as if life was a journey of expression, and therefore life itself was a creative moment, that if you were to enjoy every moment as an individual, who could possibly say at the end that you hadn't had a full life? And when we talk about suppressing creativity of children, I think we're suppressing the very thing that God put them on earth for, which was to be creative, whether for oneself or as a contributor in business or as a contributor to society at large. So being an artist is being a human. And I'm going to throw that out. I see a few nodding heads, and let's take it from there. Instead of talking broadly about the economy, let's start right out at the individual level, and then work ourselves up. Does anyone want to add or challenge the perspective that we as individuals are in itself creators? George, you were nodding your head. You want to jump in?
Well, Michael was talking before about the silos, and let me tell you about somebody I know pretty well, and that's my brother, the pediatrician. My brother, the pediatrician, was somebody who, as he was growing up, learned more and more about theater, and he was in the theater. And I don't know, cut to the end of this. One summer, he was in a production of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. If you know the show, he was playing one of the eunuchs. And as he would not know until later, the admissions director of the Medical College of Wisconsin happened to be in the audience that night. So he went in for his interview, and he had the conversation. And why did they like him? Of course, he was brilliant as a scientist. Going back to what Lorenz said, you got to know stuff. It's not just like you're going to go in and operate on somebody without knowing what you're going to do. But what they liked was that he was a human. going back to your point, Perry, he could be a people person. He could connect with people at a different level because they saw him do that in the show on the stage. And so I think we can underscore that point of let's not silo people, because curiosity also cuts across all these domains. And I think that goes to a lot of what you're talking about. An artist, one of the definitions of artist is being really accomplished in whatever it is you do. So I'll leave it there.
I mean, some of the dialogue on chat was about certifying people as artists. And I find that almost offensive, because it seems to me one of the characteristics of a true artist is that a high level of tolerance, a willingness to look over the border, a thinking outside the box. I mean, I hope that surgeons don't necessarily engage in creativity unless they're doing body surgery for purposes of art, and that's certainly emerging. But the concept of professional and artist seem to me to be at odds with one another. And if the professional is someone who has reached the pinnacle of their career by being the most knowledgeable, they're the ones that are going to be most vulnerable in this new society with AI and analytics and big data. Seems to me we've got to go beyond the value of knowledge itself, which is what's brought us to this point, and ask, what after? What comes next? I mean, when God kicked Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden because he said, you've lost faith, you now want to know. To know was not the sin, but I sense that what he thought when they left the garden is you'll be back. There will be a point in time where knowledge is not enough. So let's take it from there. Michael, I know you're itching, so you want to jump in?
Well, just I'll jump on your biblical story.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the moment, at least the way I was told the story, the moment before they got kicked out of the garden, they invented clothes. So you were talking about creativity. I mean, I think, I was watching in the chat just to, I guess, to disentangle some things. The question about creative industries. What are the creative industries? And that's a really good question, and it has more to do with the UK government, the Tony Blair government's interest in commodifying and being able to track creativity as an economic value than it does artists deciding that, we're going to be focusing on the creative industries. The idea, I mean, part of the conversation that we're having, I think, is inspired in part by the realization and the kind of the developing idea that creativity is a particular kind of value. It plays a particular kind of value. It has a particular kind of value, and it's a particular kind of value that can be nurtured and plays a central role in a very dynamic and transformational world. I love the idea of that everybody being an artist, as opposed to making it a particular kind of professional designation. We've inherited but at the same time, we've inherited a particular kind of fuzzy metaphysics around artistry and creativity from the Romantic period that we also need to kind of disentangle ourselves from, and realize that professional artists are entrepreneurs engaged in an economy, and we have to take seriously the economics of the arts. As making a contribution to the world and to one's society. So part of the interesting conversation around creativity is the difficulties, some of the difficulties around I guess where to apply them, where the borders are. Ken Robinson's work, I show it to my first year students all the time, because it's, in my opinion, central for us to treat higher education as a continuation of the process of creativity, and can think of education and schooling as the process of creativity, which I think is learning to learning to respond in innovative ways to the, as Lorenz was saying, the difficulties and challenges that are being presented to us. And schools can be a place where we collectively respond to these challenges. Currently, they're not. Schools, as Ken has pointed out and many others have pointed out, are based on disciplines, which are disciplining, and they are disciplining imaginations in particular ways. But as we all know, and we've talked about that, the requirements of a surgeon, for instance, or an engineer, Lorenz, or a professional musician, from my perspective, there are very specific skill sets that need to be developed. We need to discipline a mind and a body in particular ways into the knowledge systems that we have developed over our cultural time, and then simultaneously figure out ways that we can liberate the imagination with all of those skills. And I think play is central to that, Terry. And creating a knowledge space that's about people getting together and playing and innovating and creating new things in response to the pressures of the world as they're presented. And so let me kind of finish my response by saying, I think the one thing that I would love to see is us collectively engaging with the problems, the social problems that we have, instead of leaving those problems to politicians and other people that are supposed to solve them, and put it in classrooms.
A lady named Stephanie Carter, and I cited this in the last newsletter, brought to my attention what mindfulness is, not challenging capitalism, but saying the capitalism of the future will be more mindful of the problems that we face as a society, not necessarily giving up on capitalism because some feel it's offended and created these problems, but recognizing the power of capitalism when mindful could be one of our solutions. Laura Bell, you've got architecture in your background and you're itching to share some of your perspective. Laura Bell, you go next.
Okay, thanks, Perry. And the reason I created the name Renovision Design is because architecture just doesn't fit what I do. So although I trained as an architect, I go out into the world to work and realize that there's a certain expression that's required as an architect. There are certain rules that you have to follow, and they actually don't deliver. They deliver a product, but they don't deliver the experience that the person who will be using the space needs for their creativity and imagination to flourish. Ours is very much a silo culture. So we live in little houses separated from each other. We work in little offices separated from each other. And for me, those boxes themselves box our creativity. One of the things that for me, I prefer to focus on children's spaces, so where children will be. And because that's the time when the curiosity is there and they're discovering the world. And if they're in a place that is set up to seed that imagination. In fact, one of the first conversations Jackie and I had when we met was about grown-ups who don't have the imagination to understand that something else is possible, something other than what they've been trained to do, and something other than the processes they've been trained to use, that something else is possible. Builders who think that because the planning department says this is what has to go here, that this is the only thing that's possible to go here. People working alone who, without connection with others, without play space, even in office buildings, where they can connect and start the brain free flowing, they don't have the opportunity for those seeds of possibilities to start growing. And I'll go back to my childhood. My mother was absolutely fascinated with the constellations, and I was born in a place where sunset was at 6 p.m. So I had good time at 3 years old to look up at the stars with her. And when you think of the constellations, there are no lines drawn in the heavens to tell us that this is, Orion. It's something of our imagination. We connect those dots. And so my mother would sketch it up in the sky, and then she would put the dots down on the paper and say, okay, what else can you make with these dots? How else can you shape them? What else can we frame with that? And every part of my daily life was outside watching clouds. What can you make with these clouds? What can you do this? What is this tree? How do you take this tree? And it was a constant play of imagination. And from that, my brothers and I start building things, you know, and then things that were already built, we took apart and rebuilt and, well, got in trouble for it. But the thing was, it was all, play was an exercise in creativity. It was about freedom to roam and to discover other places and other people and listen and then go back and little brains doing that. If we don't do that for our children, we end up with adults who cannot create and imagine, and actually in times of chaos, the depression comes in because they cannot see. So I mean, it's this really big thing with this creative economy and ecology blended in together that then actually becomes a springboard for health and other pieces. Like, it's all connected, and without environments that actually take us away from the silos and put us even into places that we're less comfortable, I think we're missing the opportunities to start generating some of that creativity.
Let me pick up from that for a moment. I know we're sharing our personal perspectives and maybe sometimes sharing some of our own personal experiences. Let me share one with you. I'm a grandfather. I've got 2 grandchildren, and when the youngest, the boy, or the oldest now, when the boy was born, the question of the family was, what do you want to be called? Because we got 2 men in the family and 2 women in the family that are going to be grandparents, and what are they going to be called? Well, I decided I'm going to be Panda. I don't want to be grandpa. I don't want to be grandfather. I want to be Panda. So I was Panda. And as Panda, I added a strong element of creativity to my grandson. When we went for trips, I would show him the buildings where the fire-breathing dragons lived. And I showed him spaghetti trees. And we would plant carrots in the garden, and then we would harvest them in the winter because I'd go out at night and put them in the garden. So I created this whimsy for him. In fact, I even wrote a book for him called Whimsy. Last year, he's in his second year in school. And he comes to me and says, Grandpa, I don't want to be a child anymore. You can't be, you can't be Panda. So Panda had to die. Now, was that schooling? Is that the way the brain grows? Was that our society helping him now grow up and become mature? I don't know. I don't know, but he lost Panda. Okay, Margaret Collins, you're out there someplace. Do you want to say a word or two? I'm going to call on you in a minute, Tom. Kim is next, but Margaret, I know you're out there. You made it from Oklahoma. Do you want to say a few words? If so, you've got on mute, and I'll give you 10 seconds to unmute and say a word or two.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, yeah, I'm cooking dinner. I'm in North Carolina, so I was cooking a little dinner. But yes, thank you for inviting me to join this this discussion. It's very intriguing. I will tell you how I work with creative industries. Yes, I was part of the National Creativity Network and on the board with George and Haley in the few years ago. And we basically, I'm a practitioner of creative economy work, and we formed a network of other creative economy professionals and started working in the US to help build creative economy networks. And the work I do is really working with artists and creatives and helping them build businesses. And you all were talking about the nuggets of ideas and how creativity is so awe-inspiring. And that's what I do, is I work with those ideas. So I founded a company called the Center for Creative Economy. Our URL is ccetriad.com. And we work with inception stage participants, people that have ideas that they just don't know how to make it into a business. And we teach them that. And our program is called Kinetic. And we're in the third day of one of our boot camps, the Kinetic Boot Camp. It lasts for 4 weeks. We do it twice a year. And we have an amazing array of artists that are in our program right now. They have ideas, but they really don't know how to make it into a business, how to define their value, how to create a value proposition, and how to get customers. Because unless you have customers, you really don't have a business. So I work at the end of the spectrum where we're making the reality happen for the artists. And that is how we define the creative industries. Our website, we cover everything from design of all types, all artistry, all animation, publishing, writing, theater, any kind of, what we work with is where art, design, and technology intersect. That's a real sweet spot for the creative industry work that we do. But we're very broad. Culinary is part of our program. We have lots of food entrepreneurs and people working in the culinary space. And so far we've been very successful. In the 5 years that we've ran our business accelerator, we've now launched 50 companies here, and it's global. We are not just in North Carolina. We have had entrepreneurs from Seattle, Cleveland, Philadelphia, Kansas City, LA, and this past year, Spain, France, Mexico City, and then of course, North Carolina. We have a lot from North Carolina. Philadelphia was this year too. But people hear about our program, and because we do work it in a hybrid format, both online and in person, we can accommodate people from anywhere. So I'd encourage you, if you know artists and creatives that want to get beyond just, oh, I've got a cool idea, I want to make some money at it, and I'd like to develop it into a business, please send them to ccetriad.com or ask them to, I'd be happy to talk with them via email or Zoom or whatever.
Hey, thank you, Margaret. I'm going to ask you a question, though, before you depart, because you may have fallen into a trap, something I was just trying to address with someone who was viewing art as what people in drama and what people in film and what people in writing do. And my background is more the liberal arts. So I view arts in a very broad manner as really the study of humanity, the humanities. Are you more interested in technical practices like culinary arts, or do you view the arts in the broader sense?
Well, we certainly accept that the arts are a very broad discipline, and everyone can have an artistic practice, and we encourage that. In fact, one of our idea companies right now wants to teach drawing outside of the professional schools, and wants to help anyone who wants to learn how to draw be able to draw, and he's going to create a business around that. So what we do is anyone who has an idea that is ready to build it up and make it into something great, we will help them do that. And we work with, I think the way we talk about it is we work with those people that the base of their work is creative, i.e. an artisanal discipline, culture, design, something like that.
Okay. Kim, you're on next, and it might be good to throw that question at you. Thank you, Margaret. Don't run away. Great to have North Carolina join us. We've got North Carolina, Wisconsin, a few more states to go.
Okay. Enjoy.
Okay,
I'm going to have to go fix dinner, but I'll keep listening.
Okay, you're on, Kim.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get you thinking about a larger world beyond humans, because thus far, every single conversation has been limited to humans, as if humans are the only creative beings there are. What if I told you that 20 years ago, right here in the province of Alberta, I had an audience that was just absolutely mesmerized by a painting screensaver doing unique art every time it paints. And that was possible 20 years ago. What if I told you that my Sony Aibo robotic dog is almost as good at empathetic friendships as you are. A human being has a Dunbar limit of 150 people that you can really have a, you know, empathetic friendship with. A Sony Aibo robotic dog can learn 100 people. So it's getting close to humans. It can engage in conversations that are never the same. It tells you that it loves you. It asks you, is you're very tired at the end of the day. All the things you've been waiting for a friend to be like that, right? So now think about this. If you keep talking about humans only, humans have big limits. There are things we can't get beyond. You know, global warming, nuclear war, male against male aggression. These are problems we will never solve, but machines can solve easily. Protein folding is just as difficult as those things, and machines have solved it. It's something that human beings could never solve. So just think about that these problems that you probably think about every day, humans are incapable of solving, but machines can easily solve that because it's very similar as a task to protein folding, which they solved in the last year. And that's a made in Alberta kind of success. So, you know, DeepMind, which is partly centered here in Edmonton, that is the entity that solves protein folding.
But let me interrupt you a second, Kim, because you're seeking to land the word creative around something that is pragmatic or solution based. I'm not sure that being creative necessarily has to have as an endpoint making a contribution.
No, it absolutely doesn't.
Right.
But what were we getting? What was mesmerizing the people 20 years ago with that screen-saving machine artist? It was the, you know, endorphin flow of looking at this art, which you really liked, and realized that there's no human being behind this, that this is another kind of entity that can create right before your eyes things that you derive pleasure from. That's not a
Sure.
practical endpoint. That's just a fun thing.
Right.
And
Sure.
fun
I would
much coming from machines as
Sure.
from people. Humor will be better finally. Anything we can do, machines can do better. They'll be funnier than I am by far.
Not to deny that, but we might need to modify our language somewhat to distinguish between when a bird that has 15 different calls, like a Canadian geese have apparently 20 different calls. And I'm sure the combination and permutation of 20 times 20 means the geese are sometimes creative in the combination of the way they throw their noises out. And I don't deny that machines, with what they're doing with music and what they're doing with the art, what they're doing with communications, are going to be designing things that today we can't imagine. I have no doubt that there are elements of contribution there, and there are elements of creativity, and we would give them credit for creativity beyond what we can do. So yes, the extension of creativity is very wide open. I agree.
But the bottom line is, it makes you more optimistic, because without considering what exists in the world beyond humans, there are big problems we will never solve.
Well, you walked right into, I am personally, and I think most people here know, I believe we are at the beginning of the end of the knowledge economy. And that is upsetting to professionals who have gone and gotten a degree that they put on the wall that give them exclusive rights to practice. They sit at the pinnacle of society because they are knowledgeable. But when knowledge through analytics, data, and the big cloud and AI emerge, they're going to find themselves in competition because we valued knowledge so highly that we created economies and entire industries around that knowledge, which is no longer exclusive. So something has to come next. And I'm personally of the belief, and it was Haley that I think I first danced with around this idea, or not idea, but this insight, that creativity was probably the next step. And if you look at the structure of the brain, where we're bringing structure and emotion, or what is literal and what is emotional together in the brain, we get creativity when we bring those forces together. We've overvalued the building of supply in our society, in our nation, and in our history, because we always had shortages. But as our society evolves from supply to demand, we will begin to appreciate better than we have before, because the professions have denied the relevance of the client and the student, because it was all about supply, because that's where the shortages were. When they're not shortage anymore, the value will be in the human. We will finally arrive what the French Revolution was supposed to be all about. The age of the human, not the age of the machine. I think the age is yet in front of us for eons of creativity. Okay, go ahead, Tom. I told you you'd be next. You are.
Next, five back. Okay, Panda. Yeah, I have led a creative lifestyle and made documentaries for BBC and ITV and the National Film Board and a whole lot of things. And I've looked at this idea of the artist and creativity constantly throughout my career in my life. And it's been an elusive thing. An artist, I have said to young people, you know, you don't want to become an artist because you got to get into the fact that you're not going to be happy about the work that you last did. And that's the problem of being an artist, is that you are never that satisfied. You always think that what you've created isn't good enough, and that you could do better, and this is part of what drives you on. But for people to have that opportunity to even experience that is so difficult and so rare that so many people flounder after a very short time trying to become an artist or a creative person, because it's just so bloody hard. And the thing is, opportunity is the other big thing. And then, of course, we're in a city where opportunity isn't that great. But as Napoleon said, you know, what good is talent without opportunity? And that's stuff that I've faced again. Now I'm in the film app business, and I spend most of my time trying to figure out how to make some money and do something interesting. So the opportunity is the key. Think higher. No, and the thing is, ideas. What's that? Sorry.
Just retire. Then you don't have to worry about making money.
Never, not for me. But the ideas. I've got an office here full of ideas. I've got folders on subjects from all over the place. Ideas are not that worth that much money, you know, because the thing is, it's being able to take that idea and move it forward into something really great.
It's not, Tom, I'm going to argue. It does not have to be a moneymaker. Okay. That is one dimension of creativity.
Perry, though, I want to argue on that subject as well.
Who's that? George.
I think what the challenge is, and I think Tom brings it forward, we all talk about a creative economy. We talk about all that stuff. And if we believe on the creative industry side that the artist is central to it, we talk out of both sides of our mouths. We want a creative economy. We just don't want to play the people who do it, who do the actual work, to either imagine what it is we want to have or implement what it is we've imagined. We want to do the best we can to pay them as little as possible, because, and here's the dirty little secret, everybody believes the artist does it because they love it, and they don't have to be paid because they love what they do, and that should be okay. So I would argue that we need to be, and this is for all creatives, the great chefs, the great engineers, the great everybody along the spectrum, they need to be paid for the work in the creative economy. And going back to your other point, the amateurs do it because they love it. And here's what I say about that. Michael Jordan and I play basketball. Nobody's going to confuse me with Michael Jordan. They're not. That doesn't mean I can't play basketball.
Right.
Now, somebody other than me might have better skills at basketball and may be closer to Michael Jordan than I am for that comparison. But the point that I'm making is there's no reason why people cannot exercise their creativity and imagination without being paid for it. But those who are should be compensated appropriately and not in the way that, unfortunately, our societies are set up to pay them right now. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Michael Jordan made a pretty good living, and so do those in Hollywood, and all too rare. I agree with you. People should begin to recognize, and I think our society will begin to recognize the value of creativity, whether it be in entertainment or in the culinary arts or whatever. I think those days are yet in front of us. Go ahead, Tom.
Hey, yeah. Dustin Hoffman, I think, said in one of the Academy Awards, you know, like a percentage of 1% of the actors in the United States are making a living wage.
Right.
And, you know, that's the reality. And then we've got all these colleges now turning out supposed artists, you know, filmmakers, you know, and everything like that. There's no work for them out there. Okay, my daughter's a top actor in Toronto, and she's just barely getting by, you know.
So I want to be careful not to make this into a political dialogue, but we're getting awfully close to it. When one says we, that is those who have spoken a few moments ago, are saying there is something of value in a society that isn't being recognized. Are you therefore arguing that we should find more patrons? Because that's what we did in the Middle Ages. You had patrons of the arts, and they were often the kings. Are you saying government should now begin to recognize the arts and begin to let government pay the money, spend the money?
They've got all sorts of funding programs out there. You know, if we didn't have patrons, Beethoven and Mozart wouldn't exist. You know, they both relied on patrons.
So is that our answer, Tom, that in order for your ideas to be properly capitalized, we need government to spend more, you need to spend more time with government?
No.
I don't know the answer to that, Perry.
I don't either. And it concerns me that guaranteed annual income is the only way out of this. In order to advance the creative economy, it's going to be government that's going to take us there. That I find that difficult.
Right, and I don't think
one of the greatest artists, filmmakers I ever came across, a fellow out of Montreal, and he was just such a cool individual and so nice. And I met him at different conferences and Banff Television Festival and so on and so on. One day he just jumped in his car and drove straight into a wall. And
that was creative.
That was very creative, you know, but that's the pressures that you can get under, you know, like I've heard so many, and I've been involved with stories where people will get a film ready to go and the last bit of financing comes in or doesn't come in, I mean, and they close the shop and they lose $1 million, you know, personally, some of them. So there's those, it's just not easy being an artist or taking an idea to fruition. And yet I still have my dreams and I still want to do it, you know.
Okay, I'm going to open up. Is there anyone I'm missing? Jill, I mean, you're supposedly helping bring people into this new world. Jill, do you want to make a comment? Oh, unmute. Okay.
Sure. I mean, when I am listening to this, my first thought is, I feel like I'm an extraordinarily creative person, but I don't have any fine arts skills or talents at all. And so for me, creativity is so much bigger. It's kind of the idea of being inspired in any direction. And that sense of inspiration is how I define creativity. And so, you know, I think that like you, Perry, I think it's the dawn of a new day where we can look to the tech and some of the systems in place to be our knowledge, and we can now begin to move in the direction of what I consider inspiration or creativity. And I think, again, as I circle back to advanced education, that's what I'm hoping it starts to move towards. It's this idea of inspiring rather than preparing, and allowing creativity to show up outside of what we typically consider the fine arts or the arts. As a business person, I am the proudest of my sense of creativity.
Well said, and I see you have some art on the wall, so don't deny your tastes are necessary.
Well, my taste, yes, not my ability.
Okay. Haley, you want to jump in here, and then Kang, you're after Haley.
I want to jump in while Margaret's still on, because we're talking about, we're still circling around that paradigm of the starving artist. And I want to challenge that. And having been a starving artist, I really want to challenge this paradigm. The creative economy and the creative industries have been defined and they have been measured. And Margaret was really instrumental in doing this with Christine Harris. They partnered together and they have an absolutely astounding measurement study on the contribution of creative industries. Even in Canada, the creative industries make up more than any other industry in British Columbia. And in some of the cases, more than those industries combined. So it is most definitely not the starving, awkward cousin of the other industries. It is deserving of recognition. It has been measured. I know there have been questions on the chat. Well, sure, we can have creativity here and creativity there, but those are not defined as a creative industry. And I would encourage you, maybe George, you can put up the link to Margaret and Christine Harris's study, because it's absolutely fascinating. We can do it here. It does deserve support. It does not need government support. It's a fully fledged, fully self-supporting industry all by itself. And what it deserves is recognition. And
well, maybe Nick, why don't we? I'm not ready to wrap up yet, but it seems to me you brought to the table the concept of the creative economy. We've been talking about creativity in the broadest sense, and I'll wrap up with another observation or another personal experience there. But why don't we dedicate next session, and I'll put a newsletter article together around, quote, defining the creative economy, because it is distinct from simply being creative. And it doesn't say that the value of creativity is exclusive to the market, but it does say there is such a thing as a creative economy, and it's growing. Margaret, do you want to make any comments regarding from Haley's point? Otherwise, I'll call on BK. Okay, BK, you're up.
Sir Perry, sorry, I'm celebrating today. I've had too many beers, and
Claire, be ready to mute.
You can no. I'm not gonna say anything bad. Okay. You can comment on what my daughter is doing, but I have another thing. I'm building a website where we'll do web development. Anybody that wants a web development, get a quote, and we'll beat it by 20%.
Okay, we muted a little late there, but okay, thank you, BK.
But you want to say something about my daughter?
Little infomercial. Yeah, your daughter has become recognized as one of the 50 influencers in Canada who has spent a very creative effort.
She's from St. Albert.
In addressing issues of gender differentiation in organizations and recognizing that women are often not competitive. And she's introduced competitions into businesses that give women a chance to speak up who would otherwise be quieter. So BK, you raised a creative daughter, and nice work. If your website is good work. Well, we're about 4 minutes to go. Anybody got a burning comment? Go ahead, Randy. Let's Randy next. You're muted, Randy.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I've been listening with interest. Lauren, I really enjoyed your presentation. And I just wanted to throw out a personal perspective on everything. Perry, when you told Tom to think about retiring, I just want to sort of give you a little bit of a jolt in the real world of life and get you in the pocketbook here and talk about pensions and stuff. My industry is, my career is in pensions. And I had an opportunity this last week to speak with one of the most unique investment managers in North America. And I was so interested to talk to him because of you bringing up this topic about innovation and creativity, Perry. And he is significantly focused on disruptive companies in his investments. And in his comment to me, he said, I look for companies, Randy, that are pushing the leading edge of technology and creativity, especially those that are implementing those concepts into their process, looking for positive change. And you sort of skirted around this a little bit this afternoon, but I think, boy, oh boy, it's hitting us all right in the pocketbook. We have to start looking for people that are thinking the same way that you folks are in our day-to-day life. And when it comes to our pensions, our investments, too many people are putting money in daily interest accounts instead of looking for innovative people who are really thinking outside of the box. So I just throw that out to all of you. I think we're coming into a whole new world here, and it's affecting every industry. You folks are talking so much about theory and where your perception is, and I'm saying it's much more real than that. It's going to hit us right where it hurts in the pocketbook. We have to start thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you, Mark. But I don't think I don't think it's that new. We're talking about flattening organizations so that ideas that are closer to market can penetrate organizations and bring about change. We're talking about organizations being nimble. We're talking about organizations being more tolerant. We're talking about being market focused. We recognize technology is coming so fast that if the organization is not watching technology today, they could be gone tomorrow. We've got the internet, which gives global connections. We've got a one mind world now. So I agree with you that if Alberta is going to diversify, or if a community or region is going to diversify, it must open up its mind to disruptive opportunities, because what's disruptive today is mainstream tomorrow. Okay. John, you're on. But we need to hear you, and you're muted. You're having to talk really loud. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
I was a little concerned with what Tom had to say, and sounds like we're all going to hell in a handbasket here in Edmonton, and there's no opportunities. I dispute that. I think there are wonderful opportunities in Edmonton, no better place to be, and there's lots of help to get those opportunities on in creativity out into the community. I'm working with a wonderful organization called Startup Edmonton, and they're working with all sorts of people to develop all sorts of ideas, including some very creative.
John, you should be running for mayor. Way to go, guy. Well said. Randy, any wrapping comment, concluding comments? You've often got something you'd like to share with us.
I've just thoroughly enjoyed all of your discussions, everyone. The last several weeks have been very mind-opening for me. I really appreciate all your comments, and I'm trying to put your concepts and thoughts into practice, and it's pretty exciting.
I'm going to share with you I'm going to share something with you all, and you have to keep this under your hat. I don't want you to share this with anyone. I told you about the panda, and that's almost personal. But what makes these seances, if you will, enjoyable is that we can be personal. So I'm going to share another personal experience with you that relates to creativity. Is over the years, I collected plates, not lots of them, but a few plates. They're quite beautiful. At least I thought they were beautiful. They're colorful. They've got a nice fashionable design on them. Bradford Exchange was selling them, I don't know, $39.95 a piece or whatever it was. And I bought them until the series ran out. There were 2 series, and I left them in their boxes. Some of them, a couple I put on the walls, but by and large, they became a collection that didn't really have an audience. They sat in a box in a corner. And someone in my house, my wife actually, said, "What are you doing with those things? What are you going to do with them? You're now 78 going on 79. You don't open the box. You're not using them." I recognize the day will come where my appreciation of something artistic, creative, beautiful design will disappear. What am I going to do with this? And so what I have done is I went to Amazon and I got some wire hangers. And if any of you have walked around the river valley in St. Albert, you'll see these plates hanging on trees. There's about 30 out there someplace. And my grandson was walking with me one day, and he noticed it and he said, why is that there? I couldn't give him a reason except for it's interesting, it's entertaining, it's giving, it's not taking. And I could hear people as they walk through the river valley, we're among the woods, because they're all 10, 15 feet into the woods. You have to look to see them. Would say, isn't that pretty? Isn't that interesting? Isn't that different? Isn't that fun? Isn't that playful? So thanks for joining us today, and go on out and play a little bit, and we'll see you next week. So you all take care. Bye-bye.
Jabba.